Welcome back everyone to the channel. This is Stefan coming up with another recipe, and this week we are doing another egg recipe, and it is one of the recipes many of you have been asking for a long time, and which is called Oeufs en meurette, which are simply eggs that are poached in red wine and served with a sauce bourguignonne, which is a burgundy sauce, not to be mistaken with the sauce bordelaise. They're not exactly the same thing. Now the name en meurette is an appellation, a way of cooking, a way of serving with a sauce that does not only apply to eggs, and it is usually served with fish. But today we're just going to see how to make the classic Oeufs en meurette. Let's go. As always, let's start with the mise en place. I always say the mise en place is half the recipe, so have your stuff already cut and prepared before you start. All the ingredients are listed in the video description. For the cuts, it's small cubes for everything. So for the carrot, the onion, the shallots, the mushrooms, and the bacon is going to be cut into matchstick. Don't forget to have a good bottle of wine, and I've got the stock that's reducing on the stove. And now let's start with making the sauce. And now let's start by making the sauce. We're going to take a rounded saute pan, and you put all of the butter and you're going to melt it. Now this sauce, the sauce bourguignonne, is very similar to the bordelaise, but it differentiates because look, there's plenty of vegetables, and you got onion, carrots, shallots, and mushrooms that needs to be first cooked in butter. We're going to add wine later on and stock, and you will see it's a slightly different sauce than the bordelaise. Okay, so you melt the butter first, you put all the vegetables, and then we're going to mix well, and so they're evenly coated in butter, and we're going to leave this to cook on low to medium for a good 10 minutes. Now while my vegetables are steaming gently, remember I forgot to mention it was covered, you have to cover and put a lid on, and we're going to blanch the bacon and the lardons. So we plunge them in boiling water. I'm going to wait just a few seconds, and when the boiling starts to rage again, that's it. I'm going to take it off the heat and pass this through a sieve and rinse under cold water, and they're going to be ready. I'm all done. This is the result. This is how the bacon or the lardon looks like. Right, after 10 minutes, this is the result. I've got my vegetables, and they've just released their natural kind of water, and the water has dried up, so it's nicely concentrated. What we do now is we're simply going to be adding the bacon. Going to mix everything well, and after that we're going to add the wine in. And now for the wine. Now look at this lovely mixture. It's not burned at all, there's no coloration, and we're going to pour about half a liter, 2 cups of good quality or decent quality red wine. Now this sauce is a sauce that is made typically by reduction. So from half a liter of liquid here of wine, we need to reduce that to barely about 150 milliliters. I put the equivalent on the screen in cups of fluid ounces, and it has to reduce a lot. Basically that big liquid is going to have to reduce to a tiny amount. Alright, so who says reduction obviously says boiling. Otherwise, if you don't boil this lightly, you're going to be standing in front of your pan for hours. Now when you boil wine and all the stuff, you're going to have these impurities and the scum starting to float on the top like this. So at regular interval, you can take something like this, a little sieve, and put this in another container in the back. Okay, so just clean the top here as much as you can. Alright, and we're going to keep on reducing this. Once all the scum is removed, you should have something like this, nice and clean. Technical reminder, why are we reducing a lot of wine like this? Number one, we're going to remove the acidity of the wine by reducing it. Number two, we're going to totally extinct the alcohol. We don't want any alcohol taste in there. And of course, lastly, we're going to concentrate all of the taste, all the good stuff that sits in the wine, and the carrots, the mushroom, etc., etc. So it's just concentrating all the flavor as much as we can. We don't want a watery kind of sauce. We want something really tasty, really flavorsome. Well, how wine is reducing, let's give us a bit of time to talk about croutons. And I'd like to kind of demystify something about croutons. A lot of people tend to think that because we're French, we use baguette for everything, including crouton making. No. In the professional world, when you talk about croutons, you always need to have something that is made just with the white part of the bread. You don't have any crust, and the reason being is too hard. If you take a baguette and slice it and try to eat these nice tender poached eggs, it's going to be flying in the plate. You're never going to be able to cut your bread. So croutons in the professional world, Yes, it is using this type of bread. A lot of people sometimes on channel says, oh, he's using this square bread, that's not French. It is. You know, that's the professional stuff. And you use one of those things. Okay, when you make crouton in this instance, we've got a poached egg, which is about this size here. So you want to get a cookie cutter or something like that. And you're going to detail the shape and you're going to try to cut as much as you can and do a shape here. And you're going to end up with that. That is a professional style crouton that we're going to fry in butter. The leftovers, where do they go? Usually they are kept, dried and transformed into breadcrumbs. Okay? So I'm just going to detail a few of these and then we're going to fry them up. Now usually for that recipe, the croutons have to be covered with garlic, but usually they said you make the crouton and you kind of try to grate the garlic over, but that's not a very practical thing. One of the things I tend to do nowadays is I take the garlic, I put it in oil like that, and I make a garlic oil, and I just use a kitchen brush, okay, to basically coat these with that garlic infused flavors before frying them in the pan. And you know what? That works wonders. So that's what I'm going to do. Now for the crouton, we're going to use a non-stick pan and we're using just a medium heat. And it's a misconception to think that croutons have to be made on very, very high heat. We're going to take our time. We're just going to melt some butter and then place gently the crouton infused with the garlic over and let them fry and color a little bit. Alright, here we are. So I'm going to be very gentle. 1, 2, and then a third one. You see just enough space. It's perfect. And I'm going to leave them color on one side and turn them over. My croutons are now ready. I'm going to reserve them on a plate with a paper towel and to absorb all the excess of grease. As soon as the croutons are ready, guess what? The wine is done. Look at this. It has totally reduced and we can see the garnish everywhere. But if you think that the reduction is over, think again because now it is time to put the stock in. 200 ml. Boom. Now same as before, we're going to bring this to the boil and now we're going to add a few aromatics. Branch of parsley, a little bit of thyme from the garden and a tiny bay leaf. Now as you notice that I didn't put any seasoning and there's no salt and pepper. The reason for that is that we want to wait for the stock, the bacon and stuff to release their salt to see how salty it is going to be at the end. So we're going to reduce this by 2/3. And then we're going to be ready to finish off the sauce. But that goes again for some reduction. So the first reduction, to let you know, I take a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's going to be another good 10 minutes. Right, so our sauce is reducing. Now let's talk about egg poaching. We're going to take a pan, and instead of just using wine, a lot of people think that when you make this recipe, you use only tons of wine just to poach. No. I know it is a bit wasteful already, but no. 4 cups of water, a little bit of vinegar, so that's the standard when you poach eggs, and then we're gonna add maybe a cup of wine. Alright, so I've got a majority of water, some vinegar, and then I'm gonna add some wine in here. When that's done, you're gonna bring this to a simmer, not a boil, a simmer, and while this is happening on the stove, we're gonna be talking about eggs. Let's quickly talk about eggs. Why are eggs very hard to poach sometime? We're all scared, oh my god, when I put my eggs in the water it goes everywhere and there's white everywhere. This is down to the freshness of your eggs. And this, what you see, do you see that white here, the egg white, how it's attached to the yellow? Look, if I move my egg, this is the fresh egg I just bought today. And that is what you need. Super important. When you poach egg, you want that mass of white attached tightly to the egg yolk as much as you can. If an egg is old, what's going to happen? This is going to start to liquefy. And you're going to have the egg yolks on its own and plenty of liquid white everywhere. When you put that into a pan, you're not going to be able to have a normal poached egg. So you want to have that kind of meaty egg white attached to the yolks like this, and it's going to follow the egg around. So I'm going to plunge this into the water. Most likely, this is going to cook and it's going to form that nice shape. Okay, so to poach the egg, you want to have, sorry, you're not going to be able to see much with the red, but you want to have this barely simmering. Some people, on television, they like to be doing that swirl like this to give a bit of motion. So you can start to have that going, have that kind of swirl. But most important is to have a good quality egg. And then when you've got it, basically we're going to try to pour it in the middle and we're going to leave this without touching it too much to cook. So no raging boil, just a slight simmer. And it's going to be very quick. Done. So my egg is now poached and I'm going to reserve it on a plate with a paper towel on the side. Okay, so my eggs are poached, and I just want to show you this because there's a big debate at the moment in the world, in the culinary world, with poaching eggs in red wine, because that is one of the problems a lot of modern chefs have a problem with. It is not appetizing. It is good when you start, but the more you leave them out, it will oxidize the red wine and it get that nasty kind of grayish color. And more, just want to let you know that more and more chefs, actually, they kind of move away from poaching the eggs in red wine. They make the sauce, but they poach the egg in water to keep that kind of pristine white aspect. But I'm just showing you the classic way. Now, just in time, our sauce has reduced, as you can see, nice and semi-syrupy. And I'm gonna just try it first, so you taste it. Whoa! Well, that's actually really good. Sometimes I make things like I expect some, some taste, I know, but that is good. That is really good. So we're gonna pass this through a sieve and put this in another saucepan. Okay, so to finish the sauce, what needs to happen, you take the pan here, and we're going to pass this through a sieve, and we're not keeping the garnish, actually. And we're gonna use a spoon, and we're gonna try to press down. Sometimes you don't, but here, you're gonna try to press down and to get as much juice as you can. But what I'm gonna do, which is not the normal, I'm gonna try to get the bacon out of there and pan fry it a little bit for decoration, because I don't want to waste it. And here we are, the sauce is done. I've turned the heat off, I've transferred to a clean pan so it's a bit less messy. I've tried to salvage the bacon, but look what happened. I'm still gonna put it in the sauce. I've fried some fresh one on the side for the presentation. And the last bit is, once the heat is off, good nudge of butter, a good tablespoon. And you're gonna incorporate this without the heat on. And you do not turn the heat back on. It cannot boil again. And that's gonna finish off the sauce and give that kind of silkiness. So I'm just gonna do this and correct the seasoning, and we're gonna be able to serve. We're all done, the butter is melted, of course. Now I'm just gonna try a final taste. I think it's enough salt. I'm gonna add a bit of coarse pepper in there. Mix well again, let me rinse my spoon, and that's gonna be it. All right, so clean spoon. Check the consistency. As you can see, it's a little bit liquid here. So if you want to thicken it, you could reduce it further, but you're not gonna have much left at all. Otherwise, you can use a burgundy, which is equal amount of flour and butter, just a tiny bit to thicken it. But you know what? It tastes syrupy enough, and for me, that's fine. I'm just gonna serve it as is. And after all this work, we're ready to serve. This is a starter. I'm getting a plate here. The sauce packs a punch. It's still kind of liquid, but trust me, it packs a punch. And you can see that kind of semi-syrupy consistency. I'm just gonna use that to make a coating at the bottom with a few of those. And we're gonna put a crouton floating in here. Then I'm gonna grab one of the poached eggs on here. And it is just then cover again with some of the sauce. That's all it is. Cover in sauce. Make sure we get plenty of sauce. We're gonna have, of course, a sprinkle of pieces of fresh bacon and a little bit of parsley. In Burgundy, people like to have just coarse parsley. So the plate is a bit of a mess. So let me clean that, and that's gonna be it. And here we are, look at this simple starter, the Oeufs en meurette. Remember that this appellation of using that sauce can be used with fish as well, not only eggs, but the well-known is this one, the poached egg, poached in red wine, with that sauce here, and the sauce bourguignonne. It's a syrupy, full of flavor, and it goes perfectly. And with a bit of crunchiness from the crouton, the egg on here, where you're gonna cut everything. I'm not doing it here, it's gonna be messy, but it's an explosion of flavor. If you have never tried this, it takes a bit of time. It's a bit wasteful because we use a lot of wine, but at the end of the day, it is something that we should all try. But anyway, I feel like I've done a bit of a marathon, all this sauce making and poaching and all these techniques. It was an interesting run, that video. And honestly, I don't make this very often, but it still reminds me that French cooking always have these little gems that are hidden in some books, and I love to revive them, especially when you make everything from scratch. But that completes the video. I hope you enjoy it. As always, any question, comment section below. If you want to make the recipe, drop me a picture of what you've made on my Instagram account. Hashtag French Cook Academy. And as for me, I will see you all next week for another beautiful French recipe. Take care all. Bye bye.